Hi, everyone. I'm Rick Zanotti.
And I'm Harold Muliati.
And today we've got a great guest. It's Lili Wexu. If you don't know her name, well, if you're in industry, you probably know her name. But if you don't know her name, you know her voice. She's been in 1,000 things, commercials, movie trailers, all sorts of stuff, narrations. She's written books. She is very prolific in what she does. And she's very good. She's very nice. Here we go. Welcome to Sounding Great, a podcast dedicated to you, your voice, your recordings, your audio, how you present yourself and how people perceive you. Sounding great because you can. And we are back in what we call our center position of power. We've got Lili Wexu. How are you, Lili?
Hi, good. Yourselves?
We're doing great, and we're so glad to have you on and talk about some of the things you've done. A lot of people think, oh, maybe she's only a voiceover talent, or you're only an actress, or a combination of them. You do a lot more than that. You've given back to the community a lot, which maybe people know or don't know, but you've been very active in not only reaching the top of the field, which congratulations you've done, but you've also given a ton back to the community in terms of some of the things you've written, the Toastmasters work you've done. You've just been very involved in coaching, mentoring, all that kind of stuff. And I think that's great. I think it's great to see people who have made it, because everybody wants to make it, but who have made it and yet still give back to help others make it as well. What got you into voiceover in the first place?
It was kind of an accident. I really just wanted to be an actress, and that's all I lived for. And it's actually because of Howard Stern. I'm from Montreal, Quebec. And if you know Canada, you know that it's got a French part and an English part. Well, in Quebec, where I'm from, people in Montreal, especially the major city there, people speak two languages, French and English. And Howard Stern had got his show syndicated in Montreal, and he went and insulted French Canadians as he would, and it just so happened that I worked in a restaurant bar, and some local DJs from a local radio station would air the lunch hour show at that venue. And the guys would always say, "Oh, you have a great voice. She'd come to the station and all that." And I was like, "Oh yeah, great. Whenever." And the opportunity never would come until that day when Howard Stern, caused a ruckus in Montreal, and the press was all over this. And this station decided, even though they were an Anglophone station, we call people Anglophones and Francophones, for English speakers and French speakers. So even though this station was an Anglophone station, they said, we're going to tell French people that we know that they're listening, because in actuality, about 65% of their listeners were French, so which Howard probably did not know. And so the guys knew I was bilingual, and they said, "Hey, this is your moment. Can you come to the station, translate these radio liners for us?" For people who don't know what radio liners are, they're just these like identifiers of the station. So you're listening to whatever, iHeartRadio. And so this was called Mix 96. And so, which then became, I think, Virgin. But anyway, the guy said, "Could you come and translate these liners and record them?" And I said, "Yeah, of course." And I think it was like 11 o'clock at night, and it had to be done by the next morning. Even back then, it was fast paced. And so I recorded these liners with my mentor. The DJ in question became my mentor. And basically that was it. I recorded the liners and got on the radio station, and then he would call me again and again. And eventually he had a home set up, a home studio. And then over the years, he said, "Okay, you're ready to do this on your own." And he told me what to get, and I had my own studio, and that's been it. So I basically just ran with it.
That's great. That's a good story. It's, everybody, but then you also are an actress. You have actually worked professionally as an actress.
I did study acting, and yeah, exactly. So I did, but voiceovers just really took off from kind of the get-go. I worked very, very hard at it. I put a lot of energy into it, and it kind of works in conjunction. These days it's very hard to be a successful voiceover talent actor without being actually an actor. And if you want to do animation and video games, voiceover actor, you have to do acting. But I would argue that in pretty much every sphere of voiceovers, you have to be an actor. So it all kind of worked out well. And I, I am lucky. Sometimes I get to go on, and act in film and TV, smaller parts. But I love doing that. That's my first love. So for me, it's a great combo because one helps the other. And like I always tell people, you always have to be in acting class. And for me, that's like it's the best. I love it.
Now it's interesting because in the beginning I mentioned that you've reached the top of your career in terms of you've done just about everything you could want to do and at high levels. How, and I know how you did, but how did you get there? Was it a concerted effort, or it's just you're talented? So, that stands
Well,
out immediately.
talent is, you know, talent will only get you so far. And I think this is true in almost anything. The people who are doing really well usually work really, 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 really hard. And, it's a lot of energy in different areas. Now I have a lot of agents who work for me. I have my website. I have a lot of ways that people can find me. And your name gets referred. Once you have a
Hmm.
great client, then they love you, they spread the love, and it just, word of mouth just becomes really a huge motor in your business at some critical moment. Um, but a lot of it happened, my mentor helped me a lot. He coached me and he would, get me on his gigs with him. And later on, I reached out to clients and then I would get an agent and then they pitch in. And so it's kind of a big mix. And that's what I tell people. Don't just expect that the work is going to come from one place. That was not the case 20 years ago. I started over 20 years ago, but it was not the case then. And it's still not the case. So you really have to find your people, your tribe, the people who are a fan of you, of your work. You have to find them and you have to make it easy for them to find you. And just over time, all that builds up into a huge snowball. And, then you can never rest on your laurels. I really don't believe in that because styles change and then you kind of have to
Hmm.
recycle yourself, trends change. So you always have to have your eye on the ball. It's not like you can ever really sit back, but there are moments where you get really busy and your outreach is just nil. Like I don't really do any
Right.
outreach now because I don't have time. But that can take a while. And you also, it's just like in acting, and actors will know this. There's phases where, you're popular and then you're less popular. And you have to kind of, and this happens on camera a lot with looks, you're popular in your 20s and then the 30s, there's not so many roles. Then the 40s are great, so it's like that, but more with trends and styles. So you have to constantly be listening back to what's going on and where you fit in. And the more you're in tune with what you can contribute and where you fit in, it also that feedback loop becomes easier because you can focus your energy on certain things, on certain areas of the industry. And that snowball can become bigger faster
Yep.
because you're kind of not wasting your time doing a million things that yes you can do, but maybe that's not where you shine. So for me, I had a mentor, so it was great because in a way, he really helped me home in on what I was going to be hired for the most. And 25 years later, that's true. It's still kind of the case. But then there's other areas that open up as well. So it's just a big old, it's like a lot of energy that you put out, a lot of energy that comes back in, and it's a feedback loop that you constantly
Hmm.
have to check in with.
Yeah. And like you said, once you do good work, the word gets around, and then it
Yeah.
becomes a lot easier to find people because they find you. That's,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and that's the fortunate thing that happens with when you work, really, really hard.
Hmm.
When you take classes and you are diligent about what you're putting out in the world, when you're not just recording auditions like really fast, when you're actually taking your time on gigs you do become faster over time. But when you put the work in, eventually people will notice you, and then those that do will love you. And then that's they say you should advertise. Word of mouth is the best kind of advertising because it's free, because a marketing budget and voiceovers can be expensive. People don't realize it costs money to be in this business, and so word of mouth kind of is great because it saves you a lot of money in that way. And it does a lot of the work for you, So yeah, it's the best kind of thing that you can strive for, really, is word of mouth. But and you can get it from when you start, but it does get more and more as you go along.
Well,
Yeah.
and speaking of getting a voice career going, you recently created your set of resources, your books, Get Clever About Voice Acting and Announcing. Can you tell us a little bit about the process of making those?
Yeah, that was a long process. It was 3 years, but it was really more like 20 years, in the sense that, like, I've always been taking
Yeah.
notes. I've always, because when you do this job, people always ask you, how did you get into it? Oh, somebody told me I had a great voice, and can I get into it? And over the years, like, lunch, phone call wouldn't do it, a lunch date wouldn't do it, a sleepover wouldn't do it, nothing would do it. And it was like, oh God, where do I start? And so I thought, but and I'm just a journaler. I've just always journaled. I love taking notes. I love that process. And I'm someone that just likes,
Oh.
not the truth, but like what works best, what's more efficient. So the writing kind of was always going to happen at some point. But I decided to make time for it a few years ago, and it was a long process. I had to kind of teach myself how to write, and I had a coach as well for that. And it was, put a lot of love into that. And just as a pandemic hit, they were kind of almost done, and then I kind of sped up the last process so that people could get their hands on them for the pandemic, because a lot of studios shut down, and then actors had to work from home. So it was kind of a timely thing. So they kind of came out early in the pandemic, and the pandemic was extremely busy for me, and it still is, but I had a chance a few times to kind of review, everything again, to do a sort of latest little update since then. But yeah, it's a lot of love. It's a lot of love to help people just find their way through the maze, because it can be a jungle. It's like, it's hard to know where to start these days, because when I started, there was barely any internet. It's just who you knew, and now it's like, wow, where do you even start? So my goal was to really help people on, the 3 levels that I talk about in the books, which is from the artistic level, from the technical level, and from the entrepreneurial level, because that's really the 3 aspects of voiceovers or voice acting that you need to master if you want to be in business for a long time.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and a lot of people think that, again, even if you master all those things, it doesn't necessarily guarantee people will call you. A lot of people think, okay, I've got a great voice, now I'm going to do whatever I need. It doesn't quite work that way. You've got to get out there, you've got to market yourself, especially when you're starting. I get lots of phone calls throughout the years of, I know you've helped some people. How can I become a better voiceover talent? Like, well, do me a favor, send me a sample of what you do.
mm-hmm.
Or I'll meet them in person if they're at local. And to some of them, I never say you can't do this or you won't be able to do this. But with some people, I say, okay, you've got the raw talent in your body. You could do that. But you've got to work on your pronunciation. You've got to work on your something or other. You've got to learn how to read better, or you've got to learn how to not, welcome to the chorus. It's like, no, you've got to relax. You've got to talk without getting tense. And they look at you like, ah. And I go, no. Don't get scared about this. This is something, if you really want to get into this and you really want to succeed, you've got to put that effort into it and practice. They go, practice what? Reading. Read until you're tired of reading.
That is the job. It is reading out loud. It's more than that, but it starts with that. Yeah. You can't do the job without reading.
No. And I get this a lot, especially from the younger folks. A lot of them, I don't read. You're going to have to learn, because if everything they're going to give you copy. You have to read that copy. You're going to have to read the PDF they give you, the Word doc, whatever they give you. You're going to have to read it. If you're doing audiobooks, you're going to be reading a lot of books. And I have one friend. Her name is Lauren Ezzo. She's a voice talent, she specializes in audiobooks, and she's young. She's done 300 books already. I was going,
Wow. Talk about
300.
efficient. Oh my God. How many
And
hours, and it's like, wow,
Yeah.
that's
yeah,
crazy.
I get
That's
to talk to her
amazing.
about once a month if I'm lucky because she's that
Oh
busy.
yeah. Oh yeah.
And she's lucky. She doesn't have the kind of voice that just really projects strong. She
hmm
measures it, which is good. She
hmm
doesn't, but that's a lot of reading. That's a lot of
Yeah.
books. And I think if she's
Yeah.
30, I'd be surprised. Um,
Wow.
and
Amazing.
she went to theater arts school. She got a degree in theater arts, but she said,
See?
my whole life I wanted to read. And she's
hmm
been reading her whole life, books, books, books. So now she goes,
hmm
what better thing can I do? I love to act, but I don't really act. In real life, I do it in my books. I go, wow,
Yeah.
that's an interesting combo. Um,
That's a perfect combo, actually. A lot of actors could do audiobooks. A lot of trained actors
yeah,
can do audiobooks. It's a
yeah,
great sector. It's
hmm
steady work. Once you build that, it does take stamina.
yes,
Before the show, we were talking about voice and how the
hmm
voice can run out. You do really need to be in tune with your instrument, to not over talk.
yeah,
Because as we were saying, like the voice is a finite instrument.
hmm
So you can get to a point where I got to that point on this one gig where, um, I just overspoke. I had to do this huge contract, and they said to me, "Don't take any other clients because
mm,
you're gonna run out of voice." And I was like,
yeah.
"What?
Not
Are you
me,
kidding
moi,
me?
no.
Not me, no." And I was so afraid of losing clients, which is common, and, we're so replaceable in this industry, so I was so scared that the people that I couldn't service would go away, and I thought, "No way, I'm gonna service everybody." And sure enough, I lost I was speaking so much that I lost my voice, like, it just got thinner and thinner to the point where I just nothing would come out, and I had to go, to the doctor, and they put a camera through my nose, which was really horrific for me. Really did not like that,
Mm,
and then I had to just, like, be quiet for a week. So if you wanna get into audiobooks, you just be really aware. You do become aware of your voice when you're working on long contracts like that.
yeah.
I think you
And
kinda
if
you have to really listen to your voice and be like, I think it's getting itchy in there, it's getting scratchy, stop," you know?
yeah, and a lot of times what I've told some people with audiobooks, don't speak loudly. Let the mic speak
Mhm,
for you. Use your
mhm,
mic for what it can do. Because if you're trying to emote
mhm.
every scene loudly,
Yeah,
just
yeah.
get closer to the mic and get a little bit louder, but don't, because you're going to lose your voice. Within
Have
a
you
day or
ever
two of
looked
that, it's gone.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah, it's
It just
interesting.
reminds me of, my husband's a big fan of Game of Thrones, and he turned me
Mm,
on to it, and I just was curious. He's read the books, and I thought, "Oh, that'd be an interesting book to listen to." So, if you ever want to listen to some real audiobook, like hardcore, demanding,
hmm
audiobook, listen to Game of Thrones. That guy's got a gazillion characters. They
It's
all
what
have,
is it? One guy?
different
One guy?
accent. It's one guy, one
Oh
British
wow!
guy. I mean, I don't know,
Wow.
I can't remember his name.
Ah,
The guy is a lion because he just and the books are like 50 hours or
they
something like
are.
that.
Yeah.
Do you
And
know
they're
what I mean?
constantly bringing in new characters and
New
killing them off.
characters
Huh.
nonstop. So when I heard that, I was like, "Wow,
Yeah.
it's no joke." It's really and that's why that field really is for actors. I think it's a
Yep.
wonderful field for actors. It's very rewarding because
hmm
you do have to act out the characters. But you're right, as a narrator, you have to just
Relax.
you have to find that place where you can sustain yourself for
Yeah.
a long time. Yeah.
Yeah.
And speaking of the time that you lost your voice before the show, you were
Mhm.
also telling us to a bit of insight
Mm.
that led you to about stuff that you might use to soothe your voice and stuff
The
like that.
remedies, yeah, the
Yeah.
remedies. So, yeah, when I lost my voice, I had to go silent for a week, which if for extroverts or voiceover actors, it's just about our version of hell. Very difficult to accomplish. And then after that, I had to go see a speech therapist to really start to be in tune with my voice and to know how to speak properly. Because another thing I was doing is I was the mic was too high on this long contract, and I was
Mm.
stretching my neck, and I
Yeah.
would do that. I would stretch my neck and tense up, so that's not good for those. So I had to learn a bunch of things, and one of the things, she said to me, I said, "Oh, well, what about, tea and lemon and lozenges?" And she just said no to all those things. Teas teas contain tannins. Lemon and citrus, they're acidic. So those things are not good for your throat. You might think they're good, they're not good for your throat. And as far as lozenges, they might make you feel like you can keep speaking, which if you do need to keep speaking, you can use them. But the thing about lozenges is they'll numb your throat, which means you'll continue to do damage without you knowing. So if you're
Yeah.
trying to preserve your voice, you just want to stop speaking. You don't want to use a lozenge. Just use a lozenge if let's say you're on a gig and you have to just get through it, which would be hard with a
Right.
lozenge, but you know what I mean? Like in a break or something, then you could do that and that will help you. But as far as, keeping it in good shape, they're not things you want to do. The only remedy, and it's horrible, but is silence and temperature, room water. That's it. And you can breathe in a steam.
Right,
Don't
'cause that
burn
helps.
yourself. That's really,
Yeah.
really helpful. It really hydrates you. So you can breathe steam as often as you like, 10 times a day if you need to. And if you want to be, woo-woo about it, put some garlic in there. You'll smell great. But that's about it. Like you just don't want to do anything other than that.
Now, you know what else you
Yeah.
can do is, I had that where I actually almost burned my upper bronchial tubes. I was putting on, our chiropractor had this thing, he called it stone cologne, but it was actually Unga Balm, I think is what it was called. And my wife had hurt her back a bit, so I was rubbing it on her right close to my face. I didn't think anything of it. About an hour later, I'm like, oh man, I am dying. It was just all.
Wow.
So I went to see him the next day. I go, it is just in my bronchial tube. It just is horrible. And he goes,
So it's like Tiger Balm kind of thing?
it's like a tiger balm. And it got right in there and just burned. And he goes, oh yeah, you totally irritated. He goes, go take a hot shower and let it steam up.
Steam out.
And you know what? Within a day, it was gone. The steam actually did wonders in a shower. He goes, don't breathe in the steam in this case, because he goes, just do, and it worked. No. It worked. Here's another thing that works.
The shower is actually really good. It's how we get the most water is through our showers, is through the pores of our skin.
I know.
So, I mean, it's not good in California to take long showers, but anywhere else, take a long shower. That's a good way to hydrate yourself.
I was going to say, Lili, I think you just told us the most polite and cerebral way I've ever heard to tell someone to shut up.
What did I say? What happened? I missed it.
Well, you were telling us that the best way to preserve your voice.
Oh, yes, you're right. Yeah, it's to just be quiet.
Now, I did learn recently another way to help the throat. I haven't tried this yet, and that is aloe vera juice. They said it has real good healing properties for the whole epiglottis, the throat, and the upper bronch. It's very healing. That's
as long as it's not acidic or, as long as
I don't think aloe vera is acidic.
Water, they say stay away from everything because most have irritants.
Because some of these things are not good. And again, if you're listening to the show and you're not in Southern California, like most of you aren't, it's dry here. We are in high desert, and a couple of years back, I live in Camarillo, not too far from where you live. But we sometimes in the last couple of years got down to 2% humidity. And I'm like, 2%? Is that possible? Yeah.
Yeah.
It was dry.
It is getting more humid though. It is getting more humid. I noticed the other day it was like 30% or 40%. I was like, that's getting close to the East Coast.
That's not
too
bad.
Another 20.
Yep. That's not too bad. Good for our voices at least.
True.
So you've also been in Toastmasters, and you said that was a great experience in terms of getting you even more confident in your voice and your public speaking. What was that like for you?
Well, it certainly helped me with my books, to be clear with my ideas, and also for coaching, to be very clear with what I'm saying. But it boosts self-confidence, and when you're, voiceover talent actor, a lot of times the clients will be on the line, and there'll be the agency. There'll be a lot of, there could be a lot of people on the line. Now I say on the line, but before in person, and some of those are coming back in person. So it can be very stressful. So and for anybody who has fear of speaking, Toastmasters is great. I can't remember why I went there. I remember I had a skin condition. rosacea, which gives
Mm.
you a bunch of pimples, and I couldn't do on-camera work anymore
Mm.
for while that was going on, while that was healing. And I was petrified. I was like, "Oh my God, I can't believe I can't do any acting." And then somebody said, "Oh, go to Toastmasters." And I thought, "What? It's public speaking." It was just what I needed. It was just amazing. First of all, great community, Toastmasters. Just I met some really salt of the earth people that I'm still friends with. And it's just an amazing experience because you really, even for us actors, auditions in person can be terrifying. And it gave me I booked so much work while I was there
Mm.
because
Good.
because during auditions in person, I would get so nervous. But when I did Toastmasters, you go up and you speak in front of people and you have to put your ideas together.
Hmm.
And it just gave me so much confidence. And it helped me also discover, like in voiceovers, you have to be conversational. I always say you have to be conversational. You have to be conversational. Well, if you don't really know how you speak, if you don't really
Mm.
pay attention how you speak, which one way to do it is just to record yourself when you are speaking, because that will give you a good idea of how you actually speak, so that you can, at the beginning, just mimic those patterns. But being at Toastmasters and having to speak your thoughts really also informs you of how you speak. So it's good just on so many levels. I loved it, and unfortunately, I haven't been able to go back. But it's I think it's a must in any performer's path. Is the way that I would put it. If you're an actor, if you're a voice actor, if you want to do any speaking, if you want to teach, anything that's in front of people or dealing with people, I think it's just a really good thing to do.
Yeah, we've actually recommended it to people who are instructional designers, for example, people who have to go and ask a lot of questions, but they get
Mhm.
nervous. Just
Oh,
go,
yeah.
and it benefited them quite a bit. They felt they were much more confident, like you said, to just get in front of a group and ask questions. In this
I
case, they
couldn't
weren't necessarily
believe
talking.
how
They had
Yeah,
to, yeah.
right. Just ask questions. I couldn't believe how confident it made me for auditions. I couldn't believe it,
Yeah,
that it was such a cure, for all those nerves that you get where you feel just
yeah,
uncontrollably nervous. Like, I would get so nervous, my legs would shake and I couldn't stop them. And once I did Toastmasters, I was so confident. It was ridiculous. I
yeah.
was
It's
like,
funny.
"Oh, can I do it again? I wanna do it again." I loved it, and
Yeah,
Yeah.
the problem is that you have to keep going. You can't just you never get to it doesn't well, maybe you do, but I found that you have to keep going. You can't just kinda stop. It's kind of like you have to constantly expose yourself, maybe until a certain point, but for me, I found that I just had to keep doing it.
no, that's wonderful, and it's hard to believe because in looking at you now and talking with you now, you seem very confident, very
I'm in
with
my
it,
element. I'm in my
and
studio.
A- And but it is funny because a lot of people like that. They get so nervous out of the element, or it just. I used to be terrified of talking in public. I could talk almost
Mhm,
anywhere, but not in public. I was friendly, but
mhm,
not in public. And then it
mhm.
just took practice. And I finally
Yeah,
threw myself in to get, okay, I'm in fear. What the hell? Let me work on it. And it was miserable. And then eventually it became, it's not that bad.
becomes easier.
You get
It's
used to it.
exposure.
It
Yeah,
is.
exposure.
It
Yeah,
is.
it's the only cure. It's the only cure for any kind of fear related around people. It's
Yep.
just exposing yourself, and yeah,
Yep.
it's amazing.
Well, you've done a good job. And and also for those who don't know, Lily is quite proficient in French. She is bilingual and she does voiceover in both languages. So, oh, but by the way, go to Lily's YouTube. It's Lili Wexu, or just type in Lili Wexu in the search. You're going to get a lot of videos back. There's some great information there. You get to see Lily in action. And one thing I love that you've done is you've recorded yourself actually doing some live recordings for voiceover, and it was fun. It's fun to watch that and how you handle it, what's coming out of that, and then you added the music, I think, afterwards to make it sound even more fun. But those are great. Those are great examples of your work and everything else. And you were telling us pre-show that your husband actually built that booth for you.
Yeah, he did. Yes, he did. With his
It's
bare
it's
hands.
auto muted and done. Yep, that's nice.
Mhm. Yeah, and it's a must at this point, you know. There's also those booths, those whisper booths and
Yes.
things like that that you can get, you know. The weight can be an issue. I always caution
Yeah.
people with that. Just make sure depends if you're slab on grade or if you're in an apartment or what.
Hmm.
So you really want to make sure you have a load bearing capacity for those booths.
Yeah.
But yeah, this was nice. We took a room and we divided it, and I really wanted to have a big window, and so I have a big window just right in front, and it's kind of facing on a window. So it's a window and a window.
Yep.
But yeah, no, this is great. It's got a lot more space than I used to have. And yeah, I used Audimute for the panels, and we were talking
Hmm.
about panels before, and they're great. I initially used them, funnily enough, because for ecological reasons, and but they're actually pretty good and they look good. Another thing is because I used to use the eggshells.
Hmm.
It was
Yep.
black
The
eggshells,
Yep.
eggshell, yeah.
I
the
hate those.
foam, you know,
Yep.
and it actually works great, you know, because the waves, the way that they're all, you know, I
Hmm.
thought it sounded great, but it just was so dark in there, and
They're dark, yeah, and they
when you
smell a bit
spend so
sometimes.
many, they do, and that's the reason I got rid of them because they did
Hmm.
have that kinda smell,
Hmm.
and, although now the Audimute, I don't know if it's the construction that smells or it's probably not the Audimute, it's probably the construction,
Yeah.
but, you know, the drywall kinda has a smell as well,
Yep.
but, yeah, so that's the reason I switched them, and what I loved about the Audimute, and this is a free plugin for Audimute, they should be a sponsor on your show, um, they, uh they have all these different colors that you can choose.
Right. They're
So
much
for
nicer now.
me, you know, because I spend so many hours in here, I want it to be calming. I want it to be comfortable. You know, I don't want to come into like a dark hole. You know, that's okay when you start out, but you want to have a good sound when not a good sound, but a relaxing environment with the years.
That's true. Well, Lily, we are at the end of our show. We'd love to continue. This is
I know
fun.
the music started and I was like, what am I saying?
Yeah, it's not you. It's not you. You're doing great.
Right,
Uh,
exactly. I was like, did something start on my system that I wasn't aware of?
no, no, no. You're great. I should have let you know ahead of time. Well, right when we get near the end of the show, we'll run a little bit of music just
It's all good.
so that we know. Oh, it's time, because we
Yeah.
used to go on forever on some other shows, and it just went too long.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And
No, I agree.
but when you're with people you like, it's easy just to start talking. It's fun. And we'd love to have you back on again another time. And next time I'm in your neck of the woods, I'll give you a call with my wife and we can have lunch or something together. It'd be fun.
Absolutely. I look forward to it.
I want to take you to that Argentine restaurant we talked about.
Oh yes, good idea.
It's a good
idea.
place.
Yeah.
Anyway, well, Lily, again, thanks a lot. If you want to get a hold of Lily, we'll have her information for LinkedIn below. And also we have her website and other stuff linked in as well below in the show notes. So again, Lily, thanks for joining and sharing with us. And if you are watching, please subscribe. Let us know if you have any comments. We'd love to hear them. And again, please do get a hold of Lily. Have a great one, everyone. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone.
Bye.
And we are done.